Bloomberg's chief Washington correspondent is with the chairman of the committee that held today's meetings. Kevin, take it away.
Thank you. We're here with House Financial Services Committee Chairman Kevin Cirilli. All right, so the new Fed chair says that the economy is doing pretty well, and as a result of that, there could potentially be more confidence for another rate hike. Your thoughts?
Well, it's nice to have the affirmation of the Federal Reserve Chairman, but I hear it from my constituents every day. You know, $1,000 bonus goes a long way in the 5th District of Texas.
Not
and we're
crumbs.
seeing that. No, it is not crumbs. It is not Armageddon, and it is not unpatriotic for people to be able to pay their bills, not live paycheck to paycheck, maybe send somebody to college, start a new small business. So it's nice to have the affirmation of the Fed Chairman say that. So, yes, the economy is rosier than what the Federal Reserve anticipated. And so today, you heard the Federal Reserve Chairman allow, at least for the possibility of a fourth rate hike. And we always knew, Kevin, that one day we would be here. When the economy was stuck in low gear, you know, Fed policy didn't matter as much. Now that it's moving into high gear, they're walking a tightrope. And on one side is recession, on the other side is inflation. And so it's a tough balancing act. But, you know, fortunately, the president chose someone who was experienced and came across, I think, as strong and knowledgeable today.
It's a tough balancing act, particularly when you start looking at the Fed balance sheet. What do you make of his comments on where that stands?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned. I think it is now a little less certain, and I don't believe in an opaque Fed. I believe in a very transparent Fed, and the chairman committed to that, but I think we're a little less transparent on the wind-down plan for the sheet, because right now they have insufficient treasuries, insufficient mortgage-backed securities that are maturing on the schedule that they originally put out. And it's still unclear after today's hearing, you know, what the size, much less the composition of the balance sheet is. The Fed is not supposed to be in the credit allocation business. They're supposed to be in the money supply business. But by purchasing mortgage-backed securities, they have been in the credit allocation business. We want them to wind down those mortgage-backed securities. We would like to end up, again, with a treasuries-only balance sheet, but I don't really think that's where we're headed, and that concerns a number of legislators like me.
So many things came up in this hearing. One of the things that has really gripped the attention of the investment community has been whether or not this economy could handle the type of investment, the public-private partnerships on something like infrastructure. The White House has said that would contribute, their estimates, 0.3% economic growth. Federal Reserve folks say, hey, wait a minute, we're not sure this type of economic stimulus is something that this economy could handle. Your thoughts on that? Do you think that this Fed is wrong on that point, or do you think that they could handle the type of economic stimulus on infrastructure?
Well, I think it was Yogi Berra once said predictions are dangerous, especially about the future. And the Fed, frankly, has been off the mark on a number of their predictions. And it's not just to try to slap them upside the head. It's a very tough business, is economic forecasting. But for the entire Obama administration, 8 years, they undershot the prediction of economic growth. So I'm not sure they necessarily have this correct. Again, we're at very early stages on the president's infrastructure plan. I think there's a whole lot more detail that has to come out, but potentially it could have a productive impact on the economy. We just don't know enough about the plan quite yet.
Back to policy, you asked the Fed chair regarding the Volcker Rule and whether or not the Fed would be an adequate regulator of it, an enforcement of it. What did you make of Chair Powell's response to your question?
Well, I was encouraged by what the chairman said. I mean, we have a number of different regulators all interpreting the Volcker Rule differently. The truth is, there shouldn't be a Volcker Rule. It had nothing to do with the financial crisis yesterday. It's not going to have anything to do with a financial crisis in the future. And you essentially now have to put Dr. Phil on your trading desk to find out, how did you feel about that trade? What were you thinking? I mean, it's an impossible task. And so we've seen incredibly high levels of volatility, incredibly high levels of illiquidity in our fixed income markets. Ultimately, this has a dampening impact on the economy. And so I think he wants to rationalize that. And so if I had my way, we would simply repeal the Volcker Rule. But the next best step is to at least have one unified regulator and then to exempt our smaller regional and community banks from the Volcker Rule. That's kind of a fallback position. And I think he's very prepared to accept that leadership role should Congress pass that.
Well, that's what I was going to follow up on. So you think that this Fed chair is definitely willing to take take the lead on enforcement and in some ways reworking the Volcker Rule?
Well, I do believe that, and I think on monetary policy side, my feeling is, and it's very early days, I mean, Chairman Powell's been at the job for, 3 weeks now as chairman, but I sense, having been on the Board of Governors for about 4 years, on the monetary policy side, you're going to see a lot of continuity between he and Chair Yellen. But on the regulatory side, I think you're going to see hopefully a new day dawn, and because the regulatory burden on our banking system has led to one of the contributing factors to 1.6% GDP growth, and now all of a sudden that regulatory beatings have ceased under the Trump administration. All of a sudden, voila, we have 3% economic growth. So it's the tax bill, but it's also a new day dawning in regulation, and I think Chairman Powell wants to make sure we have sensible regulation. We want to make sure that the financial system is secure, but inherently the financial system does have to take risk. You have to have risk to have rate of return. He understands this. He's been in private, he's been in investment banking and private equity. And so with him and Governor Quarles, Vice Chairman Quarles, hopefully you'll see some balance in regulation.
House Financial Services Committee Chairman Jeff Hensarling, thank you for coming on. We touched it all. Infrastructure, Volcker Rule, and even Dr. Phil.